Hello and welcome to Offstage Podcast. My name is Chenoa Brenkman and today we have a brand new segment which I'm so excited about. Today is all about the woman in the wings with my co-host Chenoa Brenkman, a brand new voice and one of the driving forces behind this segment. Chenoa and I met back in the day when both of us worked for Gear House, where she was in the lighting department and I was in the audio and AV department. And even though life pulled us in different directions recently, we knew that together we wanted to explore the idea of the female experience within our industry. And thus, Woman in the Wings was born. But that's where this particular woman comes in. Meet Lauren Noble, the founder and creative director of Labratory. And this is a company I firmly believe in. Lauren is an absolute gem, and everybody that I have met so far through Lauren has been, inspiring, motivating. All of the good words, So without any further ado, let me just share how amazing this woman truly is. So she is currently working in the theatres of the UAE and is dedicated to opening the corridors between a global network so that artists have more international opportunity. This lady has the biggest heart. She is also a South African theatre maker living in the UAE, and it is her #collab and Convo platform that Offstage Podcast will collaborate with in as many ways as we can imagine. So for now though, let's hear a bit about this lady from the lady herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Noble and I am sitting in the UAE in Dubai. I am the creative director and founder of a company known as Collaboratory. We are a startup company and we have very, very exciting things that are coming up, that are currently happening. Basically, we're in a stage at the moment where there is so many ideas that we actually can't keep up with ourselves. So I'm very excited to let you guys into a few of those ideas now.
So what exactly is the main initiative of the Collab company?
Okay, well, that's quite a loaded question, actually, because it was this abstract concept when I was a theatre graduate. And it was always like that thing that you said to yourself, like, one day when I'm big and strong, I will open up my own theatre company. And it kind of just sat there in the back of my mind for a very long time. So I then eventually went into my other passion, which is education. So I was a drama teacher for 10 years. And essentially, it was literally during the pandemic when it hit in the UAE. So I distinctly recall what was actually happening was we were in the midst of our rehearsal process for our new show, which was Arabian Nights. I had an artist in residence who's a very good friend of mine, Sashin, who was over in Dubai doing amazing things with our student body. And then all of a sudden, there was this inkling that this thing was kind of coming for the UAE. And the UAE was amazingly efficient in their lockdown processes. And literally within 2 weeks, everything had shut down. We were in a massive lockdown. Teaching had literally shifted completely to something that I don't think anyone had ever anticipated. And then there was suddenly this sense of calm, because it was this amazing power that you could close your laptop screen and then you were done. You didn't have to actually engage other humans. And I think in that moment, the idea for collab kind of made itself known again in my mind. So instead of now being in the back of my head, it was kind of forefront. And I was doing a whole bunch of work on myself. So my own mental health, my own well-being, my own learning processes. And all of a sudden, this idea for a company literally just boomed in my mind. And I was like, what is the thing that I love the most about working in this industry? And the answer is always resoundingly working with other people. I adore the act of seeing others in success, in their niche, where they're supposed to be, and just succeeding and flying and soaring with that. And I thought, why can't that become a concept for a company where we actively seek to do that? So to answer your very loaded question, there are 3 platforms in Collaboratory. And of those 3 platforms, each one has its own function because it is an independent platform. But it is also interconnected because in my mind and in my experience in the theatre, the idea of interconnectivity and the idea of synergy across different platforms, cross-curricular links, etc., is so significant to making sure that people are well equipped for the future within our industry, which is changing literally every day. And so Collaboratory has our 3 platforms, and they are Collab Creations. And essentially what that is our production platform. It's the space where we take those wonderful ideas that are being generated second to the dozen and we put them into practice. How can we actually make this a reality? The second platform is obviously my other baby, Collab Classroom. So I am absolutely in love with the act of educating. I think that education is something that is so significant to moving people forward within their own circumstances. And I think that a one size fits all is such a negative approach to education. And I think if anything, the technological advances that we've had to deal with and contend with because of COVID have actually pushed the boundaries on education into such a space where things are suddenly very open, and that excites me as an educator. So Collab Classroom is trying to find those spaces and really do things that are exciting within them. And then the last part of my company was probably the thing that I would call the heart of the company. It's known as Collab Collective, and essentially it is trying to bring together trailblazers and groundbreakers within their own industries. And I think as a theatre maker myself, it is a very limiting idea that people within our industry might still have. I hope they don't, but they might, where people consider, oh, you know, you're in theatre and that's all you do. And you're kind of like, oh my gosh, that's so not all I do. It is so much more than that. There is so much that you can do within the theatre that has the ability to pull in other facets of other industries. And I think for me, especially as a teacher, encouraging students to work within the arts is so significant because there is actually so much opportunity out there. You just have to kind of make it your own. So in terms of the 3 initiatives that our company are going for, they are disparate, but they also link to one another. So they kind of bounce against one another in a really, really organic way. And I think that that has a lot of room for development because we don't know where this will take us, but that's kind of exciting.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced as a female entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. Thank you. I don't know if the challenges are so much what I'm facing right now. I think deciding to create Collaboratory within a lockdown space had the opportunity for me to really think about, as a female within this industry, as a theatre maker, what position am I in? And it is for sure a position of privilege where I have the ability, when I'm looking at what's happening in South Africa right now, the fact that, you know, we've got our artists that are literally sitting outside the buildings of the DSAC and saying, please, please, please do what you say you're going to do. This position that I find myself in is one where I have not had to contend with that. And I am very conscious of that. So for me as a female entrepreneur within this current climate, I don't know if it's so much what I'm dealing with right now as it is what I dealt with to get here. And I think as an entrepreneur, I think everyone has the ability to be their own boss. And I think part of that journey is most definitely in acknowledging where your strengths lie. And obviously the dirty word within the arts, where the money will come from. And I think the challenge in getting here is probably because I've been very inspired by female entrepreneurs and females within this industry. I was very, very lucky and fortunate to be taught and lectured by a group of individuals who were so strong. I think of the powerhouses that I had an opportunity to be taught by. It's phenomenal. But I think part of that is also imposter syndrome. So you're suddenly sitting there as a female entrepreneur going, oh, I have to match up to that? No way. And you kind of psych yourself out in that regard. And you're like, wait, no, that's not what they want for me. They want us all to achieve. So, you know, you've got to get that out of your mind. And then, of course, the idea that there is a huge patriarchal stamp even on education. So I literally, just before our interview, I did a little statistic check as to whether it had shifted, and it hasn't. The educational kind of sphere, the industry of education, is still predominantly female run. And what I mean by that is there are more female teachers. in a lot more spaces than there are male teachers. And yet, when I think back on my own journey in education, which is a decade long, every single one of my bosses have been male. And it's very interesting to me that that kind of gives you a very weird perspective on what you are capable of achieving as a female within education. And obviously for me, Colaboratory has an entire educational wing, so that's super important. So the idea that a lot of the females that I came into contact with were extreme powerhouses. And then on top of that, the ones who were perhaps vocal were often considered too much of something. So, oh, yes, she's in a position of power and that's fantastic. But, man, she's too vocal. She's too confident. Oh, she gives me a strange vibe. She's too controversial in the way that she perceives things. And you kind of go, oh, so that's the narrative that a vocal advocate for things that are very important within various industries, whether it be education or theatre or performing arts or whatever, we kind of have this label that is immediately put on top of you, and then you're fighting against that narrative. And I think the way that Colaboratory speaks against that is it's a very dark path. No one really knows what the path will look like as a female entrepreneur when you go out on your own. And I think one of the fundamental things that I raise a lot on my social media is the idea of light, being a light for others. So for me, it was a very darkened path. And yet I had these amazing individuals who wanted to see me succeed. And so part of Colaboratory's kind of opening journey was the ability to already collaborate with others, where I literally sought help. I have no idea about this. I've never had to do this before. Can you help me? Can you read through my work? And can you make sure that it's making sense? And as another professional, that it is something that you would agree with. And if you don't, tell me, critique my work, make sure that I am being as explicit as possible in the things that we're aiming to achieve. I think within that, there's now a shared ethos around the company, and I can only hope that we will grow from there. So yeah, thanks, Nori. That's a great question.
So with all of that being said, and you also mentioning that you have been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years and your journey has been over 10 years now. So what do you think is the best possible way to support female entrepreneurs in our community?
That is so significant to everyone's journey. So my community of entrepreneurs and of theatre makers and performing artists is a very large one now, because I have my theatre community back home in South Africa. I'm still engaged in everything that they do. I'm very proud that a lot of them are people that were once in my classroom and are now doing amazing things. And for many of them, they have become even more qualified than I currently am. So the fact that I'm getting to now learn from my past pupils is kind of insane, but really exciting. But of course, my home at the moment is in the UAE, where there's some really exciting things that are going on within the performing arts. It's like a burgeoning industry. It reminds me kind of like the seeds have been planted and now we're starting to see the little shoots come through. And I think that that's really significant, because to help others in the community, you just do it. I think there's no way to kind of sugarcoat, well, we could do this, because every business is different. But I think the fundamental thing has to come from within. So each individual that's working within this industry has to have a feeling that they should be helping others, uplifting others. And I think when you're in a position of power and privilege, you need to firstly acknowledge that, which not a lot of people have an easy time doing. And I think acknowledging that power and privilege allows us then to acknowledge that we can also wield it for good, rather than it just sitting there and doing good things for you. And I think that that's really significant, because it's for the betterment of others. And literally that's what Colaboratory is all about. It's within the name itself. Want to collab with Collab? Yeah, I want everyone to do that. I want to pull people out and get them in a space where, what can I do to support your journey? And I think this is the shortest answer I'll give you, because as you guys know, I like to talk. But the shortest answer I'll give you is the world is pretty much split, and it's every space that you go into, and it's for various reasons. And I think the world is split into the haves and the have-nots. And there's different gradations of that, of course. But I think that when you kind of consider how to utilize that privilege of the having in supporting those that do not currently have, I mean, there can't be anything better than seeing someone that didn't have put in a position where they are able to be empowered themselves to go on to have and then continue that cycle in their own ensemble. And I think it's the idea of actively, consciously, purposefully putting systems in place in your own business to ensure that you are negating those issues that you contended with when you were part of the group that did not have, because now you do. And how can you actually support that? And I think that that's such a significant aspect that in many instances is maybe missing. I want to say like maybe people know that it should be, but people are very nervous because I suppose they run the risk of what happens if I do something for someone and it goes badly and then I'm back in the position where I have not. And I think that there are ways as a business owner that you can put infrastructure into your company so that that doesn't happen, so that you are supported, and so that the act of you giving, shedding the light on, someone's circumstance and pulling them up the ladder rather than beating them back down because they're the competition is so significant. And I just think it takes it from being within you and then putting in specific infrastructure into your company so that that becomes an active part of your journey. And I think that really is the only way that you can do that and ensure that it is a good practice that is then hopefully something that becomes cyclical and happens again and again and again in like a domino effect.
As being one of the lucky ones to be in one of your students in your classroom, I mean, we had so many satisfying moments together that we can laugh on and on about 5 years later. So what is your most satisfying moments in your career as an educator, as well as a person on the stage in a theater?
Sure. As an educator, every time I see my students succeed, and what I mean by that is even the small successes, the successes where you see a student who walks into your class and the first thing they say to you is, "Miss, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to be able to do your course." And you go, "Why?" And they say, "Well, I'm so shy, Miss. I'm so scared to get up in front of an audience." And you go, "That's okay. That's exactly why I'm here. So let's do this one step at a time." And by the end of the term, you literally can't drag them off the stage because they want to spend all their time in the spotlights. Like, that is a small success for me. And I think that for them, it may be a bigger success because it then provides them the opportunity to go on and do other things. So successes can also be big, sitting in the gallery area of St. Benedict School and looking at this performance that we've worked for 2.5 months to create suddenly come to life, and students that have sat in the back of class and perhaps not enjoyed, the academic side of school, having the opportunity to utilize the skills that we're learning in academic drama now on stage in front of an audience and feeling what that feels like, and the success of what it feels when, the curtain closes and you're like, "Oh my gosh, we just did that as a group." That's phenomenal for me. So as an educator, for me, it's the successes, small, big, whatever. Seeing others succeed is just such it's such a privileged position to be in, because it changes your day every day, which is awesome. And then just in terms of theatre making and performing arts, well, the answer is this: doing what I'm currently doing, working on collab, taking the certifiable plethora of lessons that I have learned, some of them amazing and really good, and some of them truly awful, to kind of create the space that others can come to and hopefully be drawn to facilitate the development of them as a person and then us as a company, so that we can do more and be more for others. So it's the opportunity to do what I love every day, and not a lot of people get that opportunity. And I've fought against that, because there are definitely two sides of me. There is the educator Lauren, but there's also this Lauren that has had this idea sparked in the back of her mind for years and years, and is finally in a position to do the things, and that's our 2021 proverb: do the things. So I am, and let's see what happens with it.
So with that all being said, it sounds like you have a great team behind you and a lot of people that keep you so positive. So what would you say one of the things that motivates you to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I do. I have a fantastic ensemble all around me, which is amazing. And not just in person, but the fact that technology allows me to keep in contact with the people that I have kind of left behind in South Africa. You know, that's part of me. That's part of my, it's in my blood. So the fact that we get that opportunity to connect consistently is so good. You know, it's just something that really infiltrates everything, you know, just having that opportunity to get that energy from your tribe and hopefully give some back. So I think my support system is a very simple one. The first one is my husband. We've known each other forever. He's literally my biggest supporter, and quite opposite in the way that he thinks to me. So for me, that's very helpful as a creative, and he is also a creative. He's a designer. For him, it gives him the opportunity to kind of critique the work that I'm kind of putting on. And it allows me the opportunity to then have a different perspective, because I think it's very easy within this industry to get stuck in your own perception of things. And then you're like, oh, everything is going just well. And then someone comes along and says, oh, you haven't thought of this. And you're like, oh, yeah, I really haven't. And it's that opportunity to work with different mindsets. So for me, my husband is my biggest supporter, and has been since I was 17 years old. So I'm very, very lucky. And then my ensemble, who are this huge group of people that are sometimes related to me by blood, and other times have kind of come to become my family because of our shared interests, our shared passions, and the fact that we just want the best for one another. And I think that's really special. So I count myself extremely fortunate, because I was raised in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. I didn't leave until I literally moved to Dubai. So Durban people are my people. And I think that one of the most fundamental things about coming out of the theatre fraternity of Durban is that, for the most part, and it's not in every space, but I would argue that for, you know, predominant spaces, it is all about camaraderie rather than competition. And that has literally shaped the way that I see the world. So I'm very, very thankful that I was raised in a space where teachers, lecturers, peers, colleagues have all provided me an opportunity, for the most part, to see the good in what could be and the potential of what could be when things work together, when we work with one another instead of against one another. And essentially that has literally shaped not only my life and the way that I am just as a person, but the way that I hope to run my company. And that's really, really interesting, because it just gives you so much more clarity of vision when you know that the position that you're in is there because of others, and you need to pay homage to that. That's so important. Yeah.
Yes, no, definitely. And I was the lucky one who had you supporting with me. I wouldn't have been in the theatre industry if I hadn't have met you, to be honest.
That
So
makes me so happy.
what advice would you give to someone, and specifically women in the industry, to grow and thrive?
Such a good question. Don't diminish yourself. I think I lived a lot of my life kind of wanting to remove myself from the spotlight because of the way that it was perceived by some. And I think that that's really significant, because that happens to a lot of females in this industry, and just in the wider world. Diminishing yourself so that you fit in. And I think of that absolutely hysterically awful Colin Firth and Amanda Bynes movie, What a Girl Wants. And there's that line that all the women from like the early 2000s would quote. And it was, you know, why are you trying so hard to fit in when you were born to stand out? I don't know why he suddenly became American. He was totally British. Anyways, the idea with that is actually quite true. So as much as we all are like, you know, Amanda Bynes, she was onto something, guys. She picked a script that, yeah, there was some stuff in there. And actually, it's significant to consider that, because diminishing yourself doesn't really do anything for you. It just makes you lesser than what you could be. And I understand that there are many scenarios where we feel like we have to diminish ourselves. And I've been in those scenarios. I have been in many scenarios where I was the too loud. I was the too, you know, funny. So like the fact that I would laugh a lot would like offend some people, because apparently that's not professional. And you go, I don't really understand the connection to how good I am at my job with, you know, the fact that I laugh a lot. That's an interesting kind of, you know, link that you're making there. But people get treated unfairly. People get treated or looked at weirdly because they are slightly different. And I think never ever diminish yourself. Allow yourself to be the type of person you would want to meet in your own journey, with those pure intentions. So for me, the advice I would give people is learn, absorb, question, challenge the answers. Don't just accept them. Be brave, ask for help, because that is such the need for asking one another for help and receiving it is so significant, especially when you feel like you are needing to be the strong, empowered female in the workplace, and then you don't ask for help. No, that is the opposite of what you should be doing, because that is not weakness, that is strength. So ask for help, and surround yourself with good people. Not the sycophants, and I think that's really significant. So not the sycophants. Do not allow yourself to speak into an echo chamber where all you're getting is agreement back to you. Allow yourself to be in a space where people will challenge what you're saying, and that's a culture that you are happy to utilize, especially within your own businesses. Stand by your ethics, and I think that's a really big one. And learn who to listen to on your journey, because in many instances, I think I would have been further ahead in my own journey had I stopped listening to the people that didn't deserve the opportunity for me to actually take their advice on board, because their intentions were not in a space that was actually worthy. And I think that that's very, very important for people. Know who to listen to. Surround yourself with people who want the best for you and who you want the best for. And I think that that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. And I mean, when you have someone that believes in you and wants you to be better, I think that makes it a lot easier for you as well, because then you have that great support system with you. And I mean,
Yeah.
as an educator, do you think that the performing arts is a practical in the growth of individuals?
Absolutely. It is probably one of the cornerstones of Collab Classroom, and I would say all the other facets of Collab, because education just infiltrates everything that I do. I can't help it. It's literally within my everyday being is just, what can I do to engage this for an audience of young people that are interested in the arts, invested in the arts. I think that's so important, because I'm always going to be a huge advocate for the performing arts, and I've sat many times across from parents who have not understood, what is it that you actually teach my kid? And you kind of go, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be an awesome meeting, because then you get the opportunity to be like, let me show you. And by the end of the meeting, the parents are like, all that? And I'm like, yeah, plus extra that I can't think of right now on the spot. And I think that it very much depends on who is doing the teaching. And I think I've learned that over my years. Education is in and of itself an amazing idea, but ideas are only as good as how they're implemented. And I think in many instances, people that are your passionate, driven, ambitious teachers that want the very best for their kids are often the ones that will burn out just as quickly. And I think that that's something that for sure happened to me, and is something that I advocate against now. So the idea of mental health is really significant in my company. And I'm very vocal on that with all the people that join in, because it depends on who's teaching you, but it also depends on the establishment. So the idea of, how is it valued within that institution? And I don't mean, oh, look, we offer drama and music and art, and these are your token subjects. So we say that it's amazing, but we do not provide tangible infrastructure within our company to provide support for those teachers, many of whom will put in many, many hours of additional work because of the nature of the practical side of the arts. Because you do want your kids to succeed. And the only way that they will is through a guided, facilitated hand on what they're doing. So not just being left up to their own devices and praying for the best. That's not teaching. So for me, definitely, who is teaching it, how much it's valued within that institution, and just the idea of quality over quantity. So not trying to teach everything that you possibly can, because we can't. We should know this. Those of us that are within this industry, we probably knew like 10% when you actually got into the industry, and we're like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to be learning this on the fly. And that's exciting, because you're being thrown in the deep end and having to do it. So yeah, quality over quantity, taught with passion and love, that's fundamental. And just a wider view, the performing arts is a worldwide institution. It's everywhere. It has amazingly historical and cultural roots in every country you go to. Why would you want to only limit yourself to the bubble that you grew up in? Why wouldn't you want to extend your learning outward to see what other countries are doing? Because in effect, that makes your work better. It gives you a wider perspective on what's actually going on around the world. And of course, gives you the opportunity to make a difference, because you're actually paying attention to a wider view as opposed to a narrow-minded one. So yeah, cross-curricular links, finding those links, so important.
Lauren, I just want to thank you so much for the platform that you have created and your company. I mean, you inspire so many people and you give them that platform to be who they want to be and that creative space to feel safe with who they are. And yeah, it's really an honor to collaborate with you. And I can't wait
Yay.
for the many more collaborations that we are going to do together.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely, it was just such a nice way to chat about a company with people that are just as invested in the performing arts. So thank you. Thank both of you. Yeah.
So where can we find you on social media or even on the internet and just get more in touch with you in regards to your business?
Sure, thank you. So our company has our official website, which is www.colabcompany.com, and it's 1L, just so that people don't get confused with wanna collab with collab. We like a little wordplay, us. And then we are on Instagram. We're working quite hard on shifting a little bit of our branding on Instagram. So we'll be launching some more of our IGTV, obviously our podcast series, which I'm so excited to hear all about. So that is at collab_company. And we are on LinkedIn. So all you need to do is literally follow the various spaces that we kind of put on offer. So on our site, there are a variety of links to things like our YouTube channel, which again, with all of this new work that we're doing and creating together, will now start to actually be populated. So I think that's the exciting part, is that there's a lot out there. And now it's just a case of taking all of those various ideas, which have been so exciting and so phenomenally different and diverse, and putting them into practice for people to really have an opportunity to, speak their mind and express themselves. And I think my favorite platform at the moment is definitely Collaboratory and Conversations. So #collab and convo, if you literally look for that on various platforms, you'll see things pop up. And especially now we're launching that officially this week. So I'm super excited to see where that takes us and the opportunities that it brings for others.